Let's talk about the new Smoky Glam palette from Bella Beaute Bar. This is a revamped version of their previous Smoky Glam that they launched a couple of years ago. This is the first palette I actually got in PR from them. After buying the pastel palette, I fell in love with them, and I know one of the main criticisms of this palette is that it is just so big, which, you know, pros and cons, you get kind of everything you might need in this palette, but you also get like a lot more than you might need, so it really depends. But definitely this could be curated down to the new Smoky Glam. And I will be showing you comparisons between the two palettes. You can get an idea. Some of the differences that they called out are there are 5 new multi-chrome shimmers. Original palette only had 1, and this one also, the new palette also includes a holochrome. There are 4 existing duochrome shimmers that have been improved with increased sparkle and shine, and then there are 11 existing curated mattes in their beloved formula. When I swatched the mattes next to each other between the two palettes, I did notice there's some ever so slight tonal differences between them. For example, Corset does look just a little bit different between the two palettes. So here's the new Smoky Glam palette. I definitely think it basically kind of cut off the bottom 2 rows of the original Smoky Glam, so you don't have any of those kind of grungy, greenish, grayish shades in here. You mostly have mauves and some kind of plummy types of shades and pinks. So I feel like this is almost a little bit more like a monochromatic version of the Smoky Glam palette. And as you can probably see from the pans, there are a couple of different textures in here. There's definitely some slightly chunkier, slightly flakier shades, as well as some really smooth shades, some more topper-like shades, as well as some buildable shimmers. And I will talk about that in the detailed swatches portion of the video. And I did receive this palette in PR. And this palette is launching May 5th at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and it is $75. And I do have an affiliate code, which I'll put up on the screen. And thank you so much if you do use my code, which is the same price as the Poison Garden palette. The original Smoky Glam, I believe, was around $69. And obviously you have a lot more shades in that palette, but they are smaller pans, so it kind of balances it out. You also have a lot more multi-chromes in this palette. And I'm also going to be talking about some of the other products that I'm wearing on my face. So I'm going to be trying the new Moira Cosmetics 2 mascaras. These are tubing mascaras. And I'm also going to be trying out their cream contour. This, I believe, just came out, and I received both of those in PR. I also received PR from Milani Cosmetics. These are the Plumping Balms. And then for the blush, I'm going to be featuring the Sephora Blush and Go that I got in the Sephora sale. I was really intrigued by it because this applicator reminds me of those Lancome Juicy shakers from years ago. That was obviously a lip product and totally different. So I'm going to show you the comparison footage first, then the detail swatches, then the 2 looks, and then the other face products, and I'll give you some of my thoughts at the end of the video. First 3 shades are Angel Eyes, Milk Bath, and Playful. They do have a little bit of a looser feel in the pan, so they pick up super easily. So I did try to pick up just a little bit, and I'm going to put on a second layer. So here's what they look like. Definitely could be more sheared out. So I'm going to add another layer to Angel Eyes and Milk Bath and Playful. These 2 shades are very similar. The difference between them is super nuanced. They do have a very similar shift, almost the same. I think the main difference is that Playful is slightly less like a brighter, cooler tone pink and has maybe just a little bit more of a base, but they're both pinks that go peach to yellow. So I feel like they're just a little bit redundant in the palette. Even here, you can just see they're really similar. I feel like Milk Bath has a little bit of a different particle size in it. You can kind of feel it if you really kind of press it down, but not in an irritating way. And it does have just a little bit of a taupey base to it, but it's definitely very white. And here's a close-up of that shade. Next 3 shades are Velvet Crush, Silk Teddy, and Pillow Fight. You can kind of see a little bit how different they are. Silk Teddy is definitely the smoothest with the smallest particle size. Velvet Crush has just a little bit of a larger particle size, and then Pillow Fight is pretty flaky, but it does pick up pretty nicely. And so far, none of these feel like overly squishy, but they definitely have a little bit of like a slickness to them. And I feel like those two are pretty opaque, and this one can definitely be sheared out. And I will be adding another layer to Silk Teddy just to even it out here. And Velvet Crush. I love Velvet Crush from the original. Such a beautiful shade. And then I'm going to add another layer to Pillow Fight. There's like a really bright pink in there, which is really interesting. I feel like there's different kind of slight flakes in there. Velvet Crush is a magenta with blue sparkles throughout it, and it shifts to like a brighter magenta and then goes all the way to like a dark orangey red. Silk Teddy is a smoky plum, definitely see a little bit of a black base with really fine hollow particles throughout. They're not very even, they're definitely kind of like scattered throughout it. And then Pillow Fight is a baby pink with what seems like, I think it does have hollow flecks throughout it. I feel like I see them, but they're not too obvious, and it's a very icy baby pink, and it shifts to yellow to a lime green at a really harsh angle. And the last three shades are Pink Diamonds, Hypnotic, and Platinum. You can see for sure that there's a different shine level and particle size, and Pink Diamonds is just like a more smoother pigment throughout. Ooh, I love this one. Love this one. And then Hypnotic, I'm gonna go in with a light swatch, but it's actually pretty opaque, so a little bit's gonna go a very long way with that one. It kind of reminds me of another shade. And then Platinum, I love that one. It has a little bit of an orangey base, just ever so slightly, maybe leaning a little bit yellow. Pink Diamonds has a cooler pink base with a slightly very light yellow reflect to it, not quite gold. And Hypnotic has a darker magenta pink base with a much lighter pink reflect to it. And Platinum has so many different sparkles throughout it. It's almost a hollow without being a hollow. I see green and pink flecks throughout it. I'm just gonna add another layer. And here's what they look like up close. You can see the different sparkles. Definitely aqua as well, kind of like tealish green, aqua, and red. Here are a couple of comparisons. So this is Platinum from Smokey Glam, Indecisive from the Morally Grey Bella Beaute Bar palette, Fireworks from Glaminatrix Cosmetics, Lavish from Shine by EST, and Stunner from Shine by EST. And I feel like the main difference between Indecisive and Platinum is Indecisive is much more pink, but I feel like some of these other shades are actually pretty similar in tone, specifically Stunner. I feel like Stunner is really close. And then the close-up where you'll be able to really see the different sparkles throughout. For the first look, I primed with the Ulta Beauty eyeshadow primer. And I'm first taking Whisper up into my crease. And blending it outwards. I feel like it's kind of sticking down on this primer for some reason. I don't remember ever having this happen. Taking some setting powder on the same brush and just going over the edges. Yeah, I just kind of like stuck down here. I feel like it's not translating on camera. It's not as bad. And then I think I'm gonna go in with Night Dream, just in this outer corner. And I'm just kind of packing it down first. And just putting it into place. This is the Refer 13. I probably should have went with a smaller brush, but it was just the first one I grabbed. And then I'm going to slowly start to blend that out. Ever so slowly. And bring it underneath my lower lash line just a tiny bit. I'm going to go back with the larger brush. This is the Refer 14. It's funny because I feel like now the Refer 13 and 14 feel kind of large now that I have the minis. Like, I feel like these seem so much bigger. I'm going to go back in with a little bit more Whisper, just the tiniest bit, just like into Night Dream. And just blending. I'm going to go back in with just a tiny bit more of Night Dream, just to re-intensify it out here. Closest to my lash line. And I really want to use Platinum. So this shade kind of feels like maybe it's squishy, but it doesn't really feel wet. I think it's just loosely pressed because it does move around in the pan quite a bit, but it doesn't feel wet. Like even now when I'm putting it on the lid, it doesn't have that kind of almost damp feeling. Oh, that is so beautiful. The moment I saw this shade, I was like, yep, this is my favorite shade in the palette immediately. Yes, I'm just gonna kind of smudge it here so it goes over the plummy burgundy shade. That is such a wet look shadow. Oh my god, it's so pretty. So here's the first finished look. Prime with the Ulta eyeshadow primer again, and this time I think I'm going to use the more brown shades, and I want to use Hypnotic. I definitely wanted to try a flakier texture in this video as well. So I'm going to take Cuffs. I did just wait for this to dry down a little bit more. And I'm just going to pop that into the crease. And then start blending it outwards. And then I think I want to do an eyeshadowing. I'm going to again use this Morphe eyebrow brush that I got recently. And I'm just going to take, kind of tempted to take Mystery. Yeah, I'm going to take Mystery and just do like a gray eyeshadowing with it. And I'm just putting it really up close to my lash line. Just like that. And underneath my lower lash line, I can feel my eye watering. It's like immediately. I was really hoping it would go away once it got warmer out. I kind of thought it was something to do with just cold weather. Apparently not. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good eyeshadow wing. So I'm going to be applying Pillow Fight, which is a little bit more of a flaky texture. So I'm going to be using this silicone tip applicator, which it doesn't feel like regular silicone. I did a whole video. You can check it out. We'll link it in the description box. And basically this is really, really great for these kinds of textures because you can just apply it so easily. It spreads it really nicely if you don't like using your finger. So I'm going to put that kind of in the center of my lid. And it's definitely applying it pretty sheer, which the shade can be sheared out. I think I'm going to go in and just like layer a little bit more. But basically, it just picks it up and puts it down very, very easily. And then I'm gonna pick up Angel Eyes with the same applicator, and I'm just gonna pop that onto this is how I picked it up, hopefully. Here it is in focus. And it's gonna go right in here. Just kind of rubbing it on there and in there and pressing it in. I feel like these two shades look very similar on the lid. This one has hollow almost in it, but like the pinkiness and the fact that they're both pretty sheer, they're pretty similar. This one's like a slightly lighter pink. But I don't know, I feel like they're really similar looking. Going back in with Pillow Fight, I just want to layer it on and get it a little bit more opaque. I really want to see if I can get it to show up that I feel like now it looks even more similar. They're really, really similar on the lid. But I have like almost no fallout. There's just like a little bit in here. But look at this. This is minimal fallout happening here. Here's the second finished look. For the mascara, I just got these in PR from Moira Cosmetics. They're both tubing mascaras. One of them is the Maximum Volume and Lifting Mascara, which is this one. And then the other one is the Intense Volume and Length Mascara, which is the darker pink. So I'm going to be using both of them, one on each eye, so we can take a look. So here's what this one looks like. It's got that kind of curve to it all the way around, and it looks pretty large for sure. So I'm curious how this is going to go. It is not waterproof, so I have my lashes permed, so I'm gonna just assume it doesn't hold a curl. Especially tubing mascaras. I've never met a tubing mascara that held a curl from me personally, but that looks really good. I actually really like that. And I'm just kind of keep going back and forth, and I feel like it's doing a really good job of not clumping. I feel like some of the more recent mascaras I got are very clumpy, very like if you keep layering and layering. So I feel like that looks pretty good. And this is the other brush. This is the Master Volume and Length Mascara. So this one kind of tapers in. So I'm really curious. I need to wipe off the top of it so that it doesn't end up everywhere. I'd be really curious to see like technically how different is the formula, or is it really the brush? Like, I'm not sure if I'll be able to tell that the formula is different per se. I mean, I feel like it's doing the same thing. So I'm just gonna keep adding more just to kind of see if I can kind of keep layering it on. Yeah, I feel like it's like the same thing. I don't know if I really feel like there's a difference between them. Maybe a little bit fluffier, maybe just a tiny bit. So Moira Cosmetics also sent me over. This one is a contour, this one is a bronzer, and these are 200C and 150N. I'm assuming these are the two lightest shades. I'm not really sure how I feel about this one. I'm gonna try it out, but it seems, I feel like it's looking a little bit more orangey on camera than it really is. And then I'm gonna swatch them next to each other, of course. So here's a contour, here's a bronzer. I feel like they might not be too bad. Oh, that looks, I don't know. That looks really, really orangey. I'm gonna use the contour in today's video, but I'll definitely be trying the bronzer out in another video. Picked up some of it on this Esam brush. Ooh, that is, is pigmented. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna switch to a sponge because that should lift some of the excess off. And that's definitely a lot better. So I'm just gonna pick it up on the brush. Okay, that can still pick it up. So this is super pigmented. But I do like the shade. I think it looks nice once it's blended out. I'm gonna add just the tiniest bit more. Yeah, I think that's a really nice shade actually. For the blush, I'm gonna be using the Sephora Blush and Go. And this is the shade On the Bright Side. And it has this kind of sponge tip applicator. Here's what that shade looks like. And then if I smudge it out. Ooh, that looks really promising. So I'm just gonna go in and I'm just gonna do like one, like this. I think I'm just gonna do this and I'm gonna use a smaller brush. So this one is from Spectrum. And we're just gonna try to blend this out. Ooh, that's nice. Okay, same thing here. Just a kiss on the cheek, essentially. Ooh, that's really nice. It's like the right amount. This is pretty much the amount of blush that I usually wear. I'm actually gonna go in maybe just a tiny bit there. And just distribute it. I love this brush. So for the lips, I got a PR box from Milani Cosmetics, and it was a bunch of their new, I think they're new, Glossy Plumping Balms. So these are basically the same thing as the ColourPop ones, but these click up instead of push up. And I think there's a bunch of other brands that have something like this. They also sent over their lip glosses that are plumping, but so far I've only tried these, and these are the two shades I'm going to be showing you because these are super sheer. So honestly, it's really even hard to tell a difference between them. So I'm going to do one of them on the upper lip and then the other one on the bottom lip. Like, this is super sheer. It just did like a tiny hint of something. And the plumping is the kind of plumping that it's minty and not burny, which I don't like minty at all. But these don't stay minty for as long as the ColourPop ones. The ColourPop ones I can feel constantly. As long as I have them on the lips, I can feel it the entire time. These do dissipate and they're not as strong, which I do much prefer if I'm gonna have to deal with the sensation, because I don't like the minty sensation at all. So the one I just applied is 130, and then the one I'm gonna be putting below is 160. I feel like this one looks definitely a little bit more opaque, but I feel like they're so similar. But I do really like the way they look on the lip, but I feel like they kind of remove the look of lip lines a little bit. I don't think my lips look bigger, but I think that I can see the lines a lot less. So here's the finished look. Well, looks with some new products. They do feel a little bit thicker on the lip. Very similar to the ColourPop ones. I really feel like they're probably all gonna be about the same formula-ish. Obviously different ingredients, etc. But I'm enjoying these, but I feel like if you really want to try these, just get one, because these two shades specifically are so similar. I would be curious to try some of the other maybe darker shades to really see just how pigmented they really get, or like, are these shades supposed to be this sheer? Not sure. As for the Moira Cosmetics mascaras, I feel like these are almost the same thing. I prefer using this brush that had a little bit more taper, was a little bit smaller. That being said, I don't think that it did as much as the larger brush, and I really feel like the formula, I would be super surprised if the formula between these two is really that different. Like, obviously this was my first time using them, so I will definitely keep you updated. So I definitely think I need to try these out way more to get a better feel for them, and to see after like 4 more uses, do I feel like they're pretty much the same, because so far kind of feel like they are. As for the cream blushes, these remind me of the Milani ones, not only because like the compact is pretty much the same thing. They're both really pigmented, but I think these Moira ones are just like a tad, like a hair, a little bit more creamy. I do really like the shade. I think it blended really nicely and effortlessly, so I'm looking forward to trying that one out some more. And I'm really curious to try the bronzer, which I will do in another video in the future. And then the blush, super pigmented, really beautiful, easy to blend out. You have quite a bit of work time. I do feel like it kind of left my cheek a little bit glowy, but I don't feel like it's like a little bit sticky, but I think it's because I didn't set my face, which I don't usually set my face if I'm going in with any sort of cream products. I set my face afterwards, so I don't think that will be a real issue. Like, it doesn't look overly glossy, so do really like that one so far. So finally, onto the Smokey Glam palette. I obviously did 2 looks, but I am pretty familiar with the Bella Beaute bar formula when it comes to shimmers, when it comes to mattes. I feel like I'm pretty well versed, so I don't see myself really changing my mind too much. But that being said, I still need to try out all the rest of the shimmers and the mattes. But so far, my experience has been on par with all my other Bella Beaute bar palettes. I really do enjoy their mattes. They're dense but silky, and they are a little bit harder pressed, so you do get a little bit of kick up, but not a lot. And I do definitely really enjoy these kinds of mattes a lot compared to ones that are way looser in the pan. Just like either they're lightly pressed or they're just like kind of drier almost in a sense. So I usually tend to have a better time just personally. I really miss the grayish greens in here. I feel like that's what really set apart the original Smokey Glam, because it has extra tones in here. Even though this is curated down, I feel like now it's a lot more of a monochromatic palette, especially without like these 3 shades. It's very mauvey, which, don't get me wrong, I love me some mauves, but I feel like it's a little bit of a larger palette to be mostly monochromatic. So I really do miss those, some grungier, some more different nuanced tones in here. So moving on to the shimmers, there's definitely a lot of super amped up shimmers in here. There's a holochrome over here, and this shade almost looks like it has holo flex throughout it, so it's kind of like you getting like 2. And I love pink diamonds. I think it's such a beautiful shade. I also love the formulation of this one. It's really smooth and impactful and just really easy to use. And then the kind of chunkiest shades in here are Hypnotic, Pillow Fight, Angel Eyes, Playful, and Milk Bath. I wish there's one shade that would have made the crossover, and that is Imagine from this palette, because this duochrome is stunning. It's so beautiful, and I wish there was one of these kinds of shades, which these ones down here, they're not overly sparkly or metallic, but they're still really beautiful. I would have loved to have seen one of these, maybe one of these. I do think they were a little too similar, like kind of these 3 shades were too similar in this palette, but that being said, I was hoping to see one of those in here. But that's all based on my opinion. Like, if I really have to talk about this color story, etc., and my feelings about it, but you might of course disagree with me. I do really love all the shimmers in here, especially this one. Like I mentioned, love this one. Favorite shade. It's really interesting because, like I said, when I was applying it, it feels like it kind of is a little looser in the pan, so it makes it seem like, oh, it's kind of moving around. Is it squishy? Is it wet? But it's not wet. Like, when you're actually touching it and you're putting it on, you're spreading it out, it doesn't feel emollient. But there are a couple of shades in here that definitely have a little bit of creaminess to them, pretty much the same level that most Bella Beaute bar shimmers do. Usually their slightly more flaky shades do tend to have a little bit, but none of them are like super squishy. They've definitely had some shimmers that have been really squishy, but none of these are like overly squishy. I definitely recommend a tacky primer if you have hooded oily lids with some of the flakier shades to just really help them stick down. I also think they're best applied with a finger. Definitely a little bit more tricky to apply with a brush, because the brush is going to really pick them up chunky, and then it's going to put it down chunky, so you kind of need that pressure to spread them out. I feel like I said that in my last video with a slightly flakier shade, but there's definitely something I've noticed from using these kinds of shades. I do think that if you have the original Smokey Glam, I would say that it is not worth it to get this new one. You already spent $69 plus a coupon code maybe to buy the original. I think that palette is great. Now, if you didn't buy the original Smokey Glam and you didn't really like the grungy greens in there, maybe you didn't like some of the tones and you prefer this curated color story much more, then you can really think about it if you feel like this is going to add something to your collection, how much use you're going to get out of it, etc, etc. I am enjoying it so far. This is definitely kind of like an everyday type of palette for me, and especially with these shimmers, super special shimmers, and I think a lot of these are great one and done shades as well, or like throw a matte in the crease and then a shimmer on the lid. So let me know in the comments below what you think of the palette. Do you plan on picking it up, or are you just putting it on your wish list and thinking about it? I would love to hear your thoughts. And then if you like these kinds of videos, from swatches to comparisons to tutorials, then I will put up some of my other videos up on the screen. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.